Everyone I talk to says Margit is the first boss of Elden Ring. But why is that? Elden Ring is an open world game. You can go anywhere, do anything, fight stuff in almost any order that you want. You certainly aren't restricted to a linear path like you were with Dark Souls 3. And yet, most players feel like Margit Omen is the first boss of the game. Or at the very least, the first boss they encounter, defeat, and get an achievement for defeating. Because a lot of people are far more likely to encounter the Tree Sentinel. And if you're anything like me, you probably died to that Tree Sentinel. Then you walked around Limgrave for a couple hours murdering everything in sight so that you could build up your strength and finally take him down. But there's no achievement for doing that, at least not beyond the satisfaction of knowing the thing that killed you is now dead. And here's the other thing about Elden Ring. There really aren't map markers, at least not in the traditional open world game sense, because usually you'd have a million arrows pointing to quests. The minute you go into a new area, a bunch of things pop up in your map saying, go here, do this, resources over there. None of that appears in Elden Ring. Actually, a map full of markers means you've thoroughly explored an area and been to each location, because things are marked on your map, not as you first enter an area, a checklist to follow, but as you encounter them, almost a list of your adventures. You can imagine the Tarnished checking things off on the map or marking locations down as they go. So today, I'm going to explore that a little bit by retracing some of my early steps through the game in an attempt to better understand why I ended up at Margit and why so many other people ended up at Margit Omen. Because even just looking at the Steam achievements, an overwhelming majority of players, 73% of players, have defeated Margit. The next highest is Shardbearer Godrick at 67%, a boss that comes directly after Margit. Usually whatever boss is first in a game is the one that most people will have defeated. There's natural player drop-off, as people get bored, they get frustrated, or life simply happens and a game gets pushed to the side, going to the great forever backlog in the sky. And if you want to keep up with my journey to clear that forever growing backlog, well, do be sure to get subscribed and leave a like while you're down there. For now, let's go back to the beginning, to a little cave in Limgrave, where you start the game. Upon exiting the cave, you'll see a ruined church in the distance, and the big old Tree Sentinel. He's not here anymore because I did kill him. But that's what a lot of players are going to see. Now, if you go to the left, there's a beach with some pretty scary monsters. They're defeatable, but aside of that, there isn't too much to find. And at least my experience of going to the right was playing in the water for a while, and having a giant fuck-off dragon drop from the sky and completely destroy me. Needless to say, I did not go back to the right for a while. In fact, I haven't gone back yet, though maybe now that I'm level 40-ish, the dragon would be a more appropriate foe. And so that leaves one thing in my mind. What's in that ruined church? Maybe there's loot there. And sure enough, not only is there loot, but there's some very important things, because this is where you're probably going to encounter your first vendor and your first smithing station. The vendor, you unlock the ability to craft items by buying the crafting kit. The smithing station, you unlock the ability to enhance your items using smithing stones. These are core gameplay mechanics that will help you get stronger. They came from the church, which also has a site of grace. And if you rest at the site of grace within the church, you'll see a little light pointing off into the distance. You might say, okay, there's a light there. What's over there? A bunch of soldiers of Godrick. And in comparison to the scary enemies on the beach, or the giant dragon, the soldiers of Godrick are quite easy to fight. If you have a shield, you can block their attacks. You can use a guard counter to completely destroy them. And even if you're just dodging around, their attacks are well telegraphed. They don't have too much health, and they don't pose a serious threat in a 1v1 fight. Meaning it's pretty darn natural that most players will continue their journey by fighting the soldiers of Godrick and encountering the soldier camp. The camp itself has a couple of key features, some very nice items to find, a very scary knight in heavy armor, and a map stone. The map stone unlocks the entire region map, which allows you to see a lot more. Again, this is a very natural point of progression, and exactly what I, along with many other players, fell into, taking their first steps in the lanes between. From here, there's two ways to go, up or down. I went down first, which, by the way, was the wrong choice, as there's a giant knight in black armor who very much reminded me of a Tree Sentinel and completely destroyed me. Of course, if you want to, you can absolutely go that way, but I got destroyed, so I said, all right, well, if going down didn't work, what happens when I go up? When I rested at the site of grace, that's when something really cool happened. I encountered Melina for the first time. This unlocks your ability to level up, which is a crucial game feature. I know. Some god gamers get good enough that they can complete the entire game at level 1. But I'm not that, you're probably not that, and so being able to level up is pretty darn sweet. You also get a mount, which greatly increases your mobility as you explore the rest of the game. Again, continuing on this journey, I'm ambushed by the big old giant guy, which I'd already fought on the beach. I was like, okay, he's pretty tough, but I can take him. So I took him, and then I fought more soldiers of Godrick. Again, the game is presenting me with obstacles, but it's presenting me with obstacles that seem beatable. Whereas a giant dragon that I hit for a minuscule amount of damage, then hits me for basically all of my health, does not feel like a beatable obstacle. It feels like something insurmountable, so I naturally decided to go elsewhere. It also presents you with something else. A road. And if there is a road, most people will follow it. Why? Because roads tend to lead to stuff in games. For example, after defeating more of the knights, you head up the path into Stormvale, and you find a golden seed, which you use to enhance your flask. Shortly after that, you also find a spot of rest, and a mysterious woman who's no longer here because I've already cleared Stormvale Castle, who talks about people being grafted onto spiders. Definitely an ill omen that, don't worry, you'll have plenty of experience with as you explore later. And continuing to follow the road, there's yet another encampment of knights. They're a little bit tougher this time because there's a lot of them, and one of the knights has a bugle which he uses to cry out for help should you get too close. There's also a stake of Marika, meaning you don't feel like you lose too much. Sure, you'll die a couple times, but it's totally okay. You can reset your progress. Something else pretty cool is these knights have good drops. You can get the partisan off of a heavily armored knight at the camp in Limgrave. You can get the brass shield, which is an incredibly good medium shield, off of a lot of these soldiers. And you can get their armor if you want something a bit heavier. So in addition to feeling like manageable foes, you also feel like you're getting a consistent stream of rewards for defeating them. This very much helps to draw the player forwards. You're also getting generous save points and stakes of Marika so that you don't feel like you're losing your progress. Your runes could be lost forever if you die twice consecutively. But relative to other places in the game, you're quite unlikely to die without being able to recover your runes. So after heading in, you find yet another site of grace where you get to rest. This is also where I spoke to Melina again and unlocked Roundtable Hold. There's a giant smoke wall leading to a bridge and a ruined gate, and guess who's the guardian? That's right, Margit the Fell. So, for most players, they follow this journey up from Limgrave, all the way to Stormvale Castle, and they encounter Margit the Fell as their first boss. This is because the game continues to place achievable obstacles, and it has a little path going from Site of Grace to Site of Grace to Site of Grace, just a nice trail of breadcrumbs leading you on. This is why Margit the Fell is the most defeated boss in Elden Ring, at least according to the Steam achievements. This is why most new players feel like Margit is the first boss. And this is also why Shardbearer Godrick is the most defeated Shardbearer, with Radahn being the second most, and I kind of suspect that Radahn's numbers might be a little bit skewed by the fact that you need to defeat him, along with Mohg Lord of Blood, to unlock access to the Shadowlands and the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. So in preparation for that, a lot of people are going out of their way to defeat those two bosses. Yet, about 7% of players, according to Steam, have defeated Godrick, but not defeated Radahn, which is a pretty significant number given how many copies of Elden Ring have been sold. Personally, I find this to be super cool. The game isn't telling you, you must go here, you must complete things in this order, but it is guiding you. You don't really feel lost because you have a path to follow. In some cases, it's the light from the Site of Grace. In some cases, it is a literal path. And if you go along that path, you also learn a lot of core mechanics. You unlock crafting. You talk to a shopkeeper NPC, a merchant, where you can buy stuff, thus teaching you that this is a mechanic which exists in the world. You unlock the smithing station where you can enhance your weapons. You get your mount, and you gain the ability to level up. These are all core crucial features, which you could miss by going in a different direction. But if you go in a different direction, you're going to have a tough battle ahead of you. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm sure there's someone who has done it. If this is you, comment down below what the first boss you defeated was, if it wasn't Margit the Fell. And again, I'm only talking about achievement bosses, not smaller fights out within the world. And this is something that gets lost in a lot of other open world titles. Because once you add all those map markers, and once you add all of those little golden quest lines telling you exactly where to go, There's no reason to build clues into the world. There's no reason to tell someone, well, go past that cliff over there and watch out for the statue. It bites. You just put a marker on their map, a little golden arrow, and they follow it, which leads to the worlds themselves feeling more generic and boring, soulless even. It also means that you need something like a level display over enemies' heads, because if you don't know what level it is, you don't know if you're supposed to be there or not. Maybe you even need a level display on the map. None of that's here. I can tell perfectly well when something is too high level for me because it just murders me. And then I can follow the environmental clues to lead me towards a fight that might be a little bit more appropriate for my current skill level, equipment, and general level. For a while, I thought I was tired of open world games, because so many of them are filled with all this nonsense. But after playing Baldur's Gate 3, and Legend of Zelda Tears of a Kingdom, and Elden Ring, I've realized I'm tired of badly done open worlds. If you want to present a linear narrative experience, then by all means present a linear narrative experience. But if you want to make an open world, you have to build it out as a living, breathing world. It can't simply be a collection of linear narrative experiences that you do in any order you please, thus completely undermining any of the narrative weight behind those experiences. And please, do not fill a map with markers simply for the sake of checking them off. Let players discover things, because half the fun of exploring an open world is knowing that your experience is going to be a little different from everyone else's. You're going to miss stuff. That's totally okay. In fact, that's half the fun. And so now I'm curious, what are some of the best open worlds from games in your experience? And did you feel like it was okay that you were missing something, or was there that constant nagging thought in the back of your head, I should go back and search more because I need that 100% map completion? For me personally, that nagging thought is never really a thing when I'm enjoying being immersed in a world. It's only a thing when there are map markers to tell me, hey, you should probably go complete that, and that's usually when I just turn to a different game or a different game series. But I'm also curious about your thoughts, so do let me know down below. And if you're looking for something else to watch on Elden Ring, I have the 4 things I wasn't expecting when I started the game, and that I wish they handled loadouts a little more like No Rest for the Wicked. Both of those videos will be up in the card and down below. Also, look forward to my thoughts on my starting class of Samurai and starting weapon of the Uchigatana. Spoiler alert, it felt really good. But before I go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is down below. And also, a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed my ramble about Elden Ring. There's going to be more of those in the future, so I'll see you in those videos.